Hello everybody, welcome, and as Steph said, it's wonderful to be, especially it's such a chilly night tonight, with such a clear night, and in recognition of the beautiful stars that no doubt we could see if we were outside. On behalf of the Research Foundation of the Royal Hobart Hospital, we acknowledge the Muwinina people and the original custodians of this beautiful country of which we are so lucky to live and work and play on. Tonight is all about kidneys, as you heard, so it's a little bit like Come On Down. What was that game show? Was it Blankety? The Price is Right, exactly. So I'm going to sort of, you don't have to jog, although you're very welcome to. As you heard Stephanie say, Professor Matthew Jose and Senior Dietician Patrick Hinton are going to come on down, and we're all going to sort of lean against this bar. We're not going to lean on the bar, but I think we'll sit here. Would you give them a round of applause? I've just spaced us out, as you can see here. So a couple of little bit of housekeeping matters. Gentlemen bathroom directly behind where we're sitting now, and ladies is just across the corridor there. This will be about an hour, this forum, and there will be Q&A at the end from you. Obviously, I think people come to a forum like this with a lot of sort of really kind of key interest, because it may be something that impacts your health or someone very close to you. The advice that you may hear from either Patrick or Matthew obviously is sort of general in nature without going into sort of the nitty-gritty. So that you also know, we also have Richard from Minch Media, who's filming the forum. This is because the Royal Hobart Hospital Research Foundation have their own channel on YouTube, so you can see the previous forum, which for the life of me I'm now trying to remember. It was based on medication management, and it was a magnificent forum, so well worth going back. This forum will also feature, but we won't be featuring you, obviously, if that's okay, because I know a lot of people prefer just to be in the background. So just wanted to let you know that that was happening at the same time. I'm going to start with a really, really naive question, and I'm going to be the first to admit that if someone said to me, "Where are your kidneys, Jane?" I would have gone, "Oh, they're about here." And you can tell I haven't the faintest idea. Would anyone like to point to their kidneys confidently? There's a few nudging around here. Maybe you can put us out of our misery. Matthew, where are our kidneys and why are they so important? I'm going to pass you the mic.
Thanks, Jane. So most people have 2 kidneys. Some people have 3, or even
some
of my patients have 4, because some of them actually get transplants of things. So your own kidneys are actually, they're about 10 to 12 centimetres. They're about as big as my fist, and they're actually situated right up against your back, near your backbone as such. And that's where, when you see when some of the players in netball or football get kneed in the abdomen, that's sort of what can sort of puncture a kidney or hurt it. But they're really well protected. In fact, we've had, but a kidney transplant goes in the front, near where your appendix is. And they're the ones that can be at risk, unless your Jonah Lomu goes out and plays rugby and wants it tucked up under his ribs. So he's special and he got a kidney transplant put in a different place. So they're near your back, but they don't usually cause back pain. We see a lot of people who get back pain, but it's not usually due to your kidneys. And most people should have 2. And you'll hear me say, "Have you got 2 kidneys?" And people laugh at me, but actually some people are only born with 1. So the answer is between 1 and 4, mostly up near your back.
Okay, so that wasn't too
far out, no.
Too far out, because when you look at a picture, and I did actually do my homework, and I was looking at a picture of kidneys online. To me, they looked forward of, they looked round about here, but that obviously, trust what Matthew says, he obviously knows what he's talking about. And that little tidbit about Jonah Lomu is really interesting. Yep. Wow.
If you're into rugby. Yep.
Yeah, unfortunately I am, but we won't talk about last Saturday against the Lions, I promise we won't. Perhaps we might find out a little bit more about a typical day. I'm sure you're going to say that's really rather hard to describe, but maybe Patrick, in terms of your daily work and particularly in relation to kidneys, the focus of our talk.
Yeah, so I work most of my time at the Royal Hobart Hospital on the hospital wards, more so on the surgical wards, seeing patients who have had surgeries of various kinds or complications around that, and really focused on the gastrointestinal system. I also work with Matthew and the renal team when there are patients that have multiple issues happening at once, and they need a wide range of people from the healthcare team to help them out get back to good health. And I also work in some of the clinics, seeing people that come in who are healthy and well at home, but they still need some nutrition advice of various kinds, and that's usually seeing little bubs or kids or teenagers. So it's quite varied, my day, and that's what I really like about it. I enjoy helping people out, and I find science fascinating, so I've sort of combined that all in my job, and yeah, I feel very lucky.
Thank you, Patrick. Could you share with Matthew a sort of an example of where you might roam through a week?
Right, so I certainly do roam, partly because I have a couple of jobs. The main job is a kidney doctor in the hospital. I gave up private practice a number of years ago during the pandemic, so I really focused in the hospital. So this morning I started at 7:30 out at our dialysis unit, which is out at Newtown, St John's Park area, and so our patients who start dialysis start at 7:30 in the morning. Some of them had come as far away as New Bena, so they were on the 6 a.m. sort of transport coming up to start dialysis out there. So I saw a number of my patients out there, did all the usual paperwork. Anybody who waved at me and said, "Hey doc, can I have a word to you?" I saw them. And then we have our multidisciplinary meeting, which includes our dietitians, about 11 o'clock. So I actually managed to get back to the hospital by that time. We had a team meeting, talked about all of our patients who are in hospital, who are out of hospital, talked about people who had upcoming transplants and things, who head over to Melbourne to have that transplant, and really, you know, having dietary advice is really important, because they suddenly change from being a dialysis patient under a whole lot of restrictions to actually being someone with a transplant and high-dose cortisone or corticosteroids, which change things completely. And then in the afternoon I did some teaching to medical students, and rang up a few patients about results and things which I'd had from the clinic the day before. And then I thought I'd better get here by 5 o'clock, which actually cuts the day short. You know, most of the time I'm there till sort of 6:30. It's sort of about a 10 or 11 hour day. So really it's quite varied between clinical work. I'm also head of unit, so I do administration, I do teaching, and the reason I'm here for the Research Foundation is they've been very generous to kidney research over many, many years. In fact, next year will be the 20th anniversary of my first Research Foundation grant, which was for when I first came down here, having married a Tasmanian 35 years ago. She dragged me down here to Tassie 20 years ago. So yeah, so that's my job, very varied, and I roam quite a lot.
I'm glad that verb resonated with you. And we will talk, I'm keen to find out, because of course one of the great features of the Royal Hobart Hospital Research Foundation, as you know, is that the fundraising that they do means that we can support extraordinary medical research right here in Hobart. And I think that's certainly why I'm a donor, and you know, with a modest amount, but I know I like to think, Stephanie, that every cent helps and goes into research, medical research here in Tasmania. Patrick, how did you come to specialise in nutrition? You've obviously shared with us, and obviously from your personality, you're a caring human being. Was it that sufficient to drive you into nutrition and being a dietitian?
Yeah, I'd say there's a fair factors. So as you mentioned there, Jane, I really do enjoy working with people and helping out others. So that's one of the draw cards. But as I said too, I really enjoy science and really trying to understand the why behind things. And furthermore to that, I enjoy my food. I've got a big veggie patch at home, love growing my own produce and have some chickens. So I suppose trying to bring all these things together in a career, help out people, love my food, I get to talk about that quite often, helping out patients and taking that science and breaking it down to really, I would hope so, to think easy to understand formats to then other people can take that information and use that in the way they best feel is useful for their health. So yeah, I suppose that's in a bit of a nutshell about why I've been drawn to nutrition and dietetics. Yeah.
And I understand when you work at the Royal Hobart Hospital, you're certainly working with adult patients, but are you also working with children as well?
Yes, I am. So particularly children who have gastrointestinal issues, whether that say be celiac disease or Crohn's, but basically some reason that might be preventing their nutrition from being absorbed so they can grow and thrive and grow into strong, healthy, happy humans. I can step in together with the doctors, the nurses and the wider medical team to help out these people. So yeah, I think one thing too with the hospital work and working as a dietitian, you're never working by yourself. You're working together with a broad team. If that's in the renal space with the kidney doctors, the nurses doing an amazing job caring for patients, or the rest of the allied health team, it's a really broad and wide-ranging team. And yeah, it's a very rewarding place to be, very meaningful to help out others and work with some very clever and kind people across the board.
And believe me, as we're very grateful for every single one of you. Matthew, let's have a look at kidney disease. And I confess I hadn't heard of this moniker, a silent disease. Could you explain why that is, and why does that therefore make early detection of any issues with your kidneys difficult?
So it's actually, we talk about a silent disease or the silent killer. You actually don't get symptoms of having kidney problems until you're down around 20% of function.
Oh, wow.
So you can do a blood test. We do a kidney check, a blood and urine test and measure your blood pressure. And we can look at how your kidneys are going. Most people's kidneys run along at about 100% until you reach the age of 40, and then like everything else when you're past 40, it's all downhill. So you lose about 1 point of function per year, or about 8 points over a decade. So if you come to see me and you're 80, 85, I'll look at your kidney function and we'll do that maths together, and I'll tell you your kidneys will last you to 120. And most people are pretty happy about that.
Yeah.
So that's where you don't get symptoms until it's down around 20%. We put people on kidney machines on average at 7% when you're down below 10%. So you don't need to panic, there's a long way to go, but you do feel it, you slow down. Now, it's interesting that it is actually a silent killer. When the TasPop survey looks at us Tasmanians, do you have kidney disease? About 3 to 4% of Tasmanians say yes, they do. The actual truth is about 14%. So actually only 1/3 or to one quarter to 1/3 of Tasmanians are actually aware they've got kidney disease. If you look at every other disease that the TasPop survey asks about, lung disease, heart disease, stroke, Tasmanians get it right. They know what's going on, but kidney disease is not one that they know well about. So there's two reasons there. One is people don't know about it. Two, it actually doesn't cause any problems until it's very late in the piece. And that's why we want people to get tested early, because there's certainly things we can do about it.
Well, that's too good an opportunity to say, what can we do about it?
Well, tonight's topic is about good healthy diets. So that's the first thing, is actually, and we'll talk about it a little bit in a minute, that actually kidney disease goes with diabetes and cardiovascular disease. That's what's good for the heart is usually good for the kidneys. So it's really good healthy eating and good healthy living. You don't have to run as far as Patrick does, but actually good regular physical activity I think is really important. Then these days we've got some brilliant drugs. Medicines that we get you to go on that actually a lot of people already know about that work for diabetes actually now work for both kidney disease and heart disease, and they're now able to push out the use of kidney machines by about 15 years the earlier we start it. The problem is we can't start those medicines if you're down below 25% function. We have to start them early. So that's where early detection is really important, to actually then look at that long-term thing. Because actually, if you're 60, and I'm talking to you about kidney machines, that's too early. If you're 90, people don't really care about kidney machines, so it's completely different. So actually pushing away things are really important. So it starts with good, healthy living, I think, is the important message.
And of course that also is so conducive to a long and hopefully high functioning life. Patrick, are there dietary signs that you look for when that might indicate that someone's kidneys are under strain?
Yeah, so I think similar to what Matthew said, so in short answer, no, not really, until it is getting towards those very later stages. Often there can be no signs at all. If it is getting to a later stage, sometimes it might be seen as nausea or vomiting as a side effect when your kidneys aren't getting rid of the toxins that they usually do if they're not functioning well, but that's only very, very late down the track, and it's largely, there aren't really any signs or symptoms until it is quite towards an end stage of kidney function.
And I think, Matthew, and my apologies if I didn't sort of get an opportunity to foreground this, I understand our kidneys are all the more remarkable, as I'm learning already in the first 15 minutes of this forum, but they filter that, from what I was looking at today in research, that the kidneys are remarkable for that. So whether you've got 1, 2, 3 or 4, they do this extraordinary job. Could you perhaps just educate us on precisely what, the gamut of the way the kidneys work in the body?
Thank you. So there's 5 major functions, and each kidney's got about 1 million filter units in it, which we call nephrons. So the filter unit is a complex T strainer to start off with. So that's the first thing it does. But beyond that, there's what's called tubules, and the tubules are the bit that do all the salt regulation. A lot of the toxins come out through there, and also the water regulation. So each day they filter about 180 litres of your blood, but most people only pee about 1 or 2 litres. So they actually do a remarkable job of actually recycling all of that, and if we could harness that for our water conservation, it's that sort of things. So it does a lot of water regulation, it does a lot of salt, it does a lot of acid base. It impacts to do with anemia and hemoglobin and erythropoietin. It also activates vitamin D. So the vitamin D you hear about in the news, that's not active. That's just the one we can measure. The active one is produced by the kidneys. And so if you haven't got working kidneys, you can't get active vitamin D, which is what we then give you in a tablet. So it does all these remarkable things, all in a 10 centimetre organ, which is why we, even if you've got kidney failure, we leave them in, because it does do some of these other things on an ongoing basis. If we take them out, then you're totally reliant on me getting the right medicines for you to replace it. So the kidneys are a remarkable thing. We want to keep them as long as we can.
Thank you, Matthew. You mentioned, did you say 14% of Tasmanians are possibly suffering or enduring sort of a decline in their kidney optimum health?
That's right. So 1 in 7? 1 in 7 Tasmanians, that's the new ABS, Australian Bureau of Statistics. What they do is, with the census, they also do what's called biomedical measures. So they take a bunch of people, they ask to do a urine test and a blood test, blood sugar and a whole lot of other biomedical measures. And the good news is Tasmania's come out on top. We've got the highest rate of kidney disease in the country, but we knew that 10 years ago. You know, we're really good at coming out on top on a whole lot of these chronic diseases. So 1 in 7, 10 years ago when we talked about this, it was 1 in 10. So it's actually increasing, and there are now more people with kidney disease in Tasmania than there are people with diabetes. And they're not actually, even though diabetes does contribute to kidney disease, they're not the same people as such. So we've got a whole host of people around Tasmania who've got low kidney function but may actually not be aware or be front of mind.
Gosh, that's extraordinary. Because I've shared, thank you to the Research Foundation, that there is recent data that kidney disease cases have increased in Tasmania, and the data is much more alarming when you look at certain regions with an 88% surge in the northwestern regions. I have family in the northwest, so I'm not about to cast any shade on them. Obviously, I need to know what do you think is contributing to that that rise in and that elevation?
Simple answer is we don't exactly know. The simple answer beyond that is, okay, yes, diabetes is there, but even when we take away anybody who's diabetic, the people who are left, the rise in rate of kidney disease is still the same, and still the geographic population or areas are the same. There are places like Newtown in north of the city here, which actually has had less kidney disease in the last 10 years, possibly because it's gentrified, you know, different people moving into Newtown. But the northwest, absolutely, the growth rate there. So the northwest has now got as many people with kidney disease as the northeast does. So actually that's higher, and those together have more than the southern Tasmania does. So the rates are increasing. It's not uniform across Tasmania. So some of our studies are the first in the country to look down to that level of detail. And we can tell you, if you tell me which local government area you're in, we can look at what rates of kidney disease are there. And I showed all that data to a GP talk I did last Tuesday night to Primary Health Tasmania, where we could drill down in your area and actually look at rates of kidney disease, rates of diabetes, and then really educating the local GPs to really do the testing there. But actually why that is, we actually don't specifically know why Ulverston has got a higher rate than, say, Swansea.
Gosh. Super fascinating. I can see some more research here, can't you, Steph Furler? Well, let's have a look then, as you can tell from that delicious looking kale smoothie, that we do want to also examine in the forum tonight, looking at diets and particularly fad diets and detoxing for health. That could be a motivation for you to attend this evening. So Patrick, I'm going to turn to you and ask, what are some of the most common mistakes or myths that people bring with them when it comes to food and good health?
Yeah.
Big broad question for you.
It is a very big broad question. So I suppose, and I suppose I'm speaking in general terms now. So by and large, I think no one, generally you shouldn't really be following some strict or specific diet. So general healthy eating, no need to be restrictive on lots of things. So having food from really the 5 food groups. Now when I mention the 5 food groups, I might just get a really quick couple of thoughts from people in the crowd. So what do we think the 5 food groups are? Happy for you to shout them out. Yep, grains and cereals, that's one. Vegetables, number 2, yep. Dairy or dairy alternatives, number 3. Fish or also meat, yep, so meat and meat alternatives. And there's one more, fruit, yeah. So I think it's really important to have food from all of those 5 food groups every single day. And having lots of variety, so lots of different colours of foods, lots of different types of foods, that then really helps you get all the nutrients that your body needs to function really well, and hopefully avoid lots of these chronic conditions. So I think that's the number one thing. There's no need to be on the specific fad diet. General healthy eating, food, lots of different types, lots of those 5 food groups, and potentially easing off on animal-based sources of, if we think about protein sources, plant-based sources are particularly good for our kidneys. So that's another thing to keep in mind if you enjoy some of the more sort of plant-based sources of proteins too. That could be something to consider. And really, I think if you're jumping online on social media, there is a lot of diet information out there these days. It's just an overwhelming sea of information. And most of those people publishing that information generally don't have any nutrition and health credentials. So I think applying a level of scepticism to what you see online can be a very wise approach, and focusing back on that healthy eating advice. A couple of sources of information if some people are looking for, well, what does that look like in more detail? The Australian Guide to Healthy Eating or the Australian Dietary Guidelines, really good place to turn to. As well as the Heart Foundation, they've got some great recipes and information on there. So some of those sort of large governmental bodies, the Kidney Foundation too, great source to turn to for information. They're places if you're looking for, well, what should I go to in a bit more detail? I suggest places like that and really steer clear from a lot of those social media posts and information that's out there, because it's not filtered by experts in many situations. It's a bit of the Wild West of information. Yeah, so I suppose that sums it up in a fair nutshell, and we'll delve into a little bit more about detoxes and things like that in the rest of the talk as it unfolds tonight.
Can I ask you a question, Patrick? You mentioned, but say if you're a vegetarian or will eat little meat for protein, what are some good examples of vegetable plant-based protein?
Yeah, sure. So I think that the number one thing would be thinking about legumes. So that includes things like, say, lentils, chickpeas, kidney beans, hummus. I think there was a nice hummus back there, falafels too, sort of chickpea based. That's a great source. Also nuts and seeds, so almonds, walnuts, all those types of nuts there. Seeds like sunflower seeds, pepitas or pumpkin seeds. Lots of those types of things there. You can get lots of great nutrition from them, get some protein as well. I think we're going to look at protein a little bit more coming up, but that's certainly, I think, one of these fad diets or things that's really getting a lot of airtime right now in the online world. And the reality is many of us don't need really high protein diets. Some's important, absolutely, but having, say, red meat for breakfast, lunch and dinner is going to put a lot of strain on our poor kidneys processing all that meat.
That doesn't sound remotely attractive at all, breakfast, lunch and dinner. Well, let us tackle that word that we've flagged as part of this forum tonight, which is detox. And interesting to reflect on what actually happens in the body in that regard. May I start with you, Matthew, in terms of a clinical understanding of what happens if you really subscribe to detoxing?
the good thing is your body's remarkable in terms of the detoxification you have is liver and your kidneys, and it'll do most things. Now, the only people who need to detox really are people who are actually putting toxins in, because actually your body will take care of internally of your toxins as such until you get down, like I said, to about 20% of kidney function. So most people shouldn't need to detox. Patrick was talking about the difference between animal and vegetable protein. One of the remarkable things we see is as you've got kidney failure, the toxin levels are much higher in people who are eating animal protein and things, are much lower in people who are using mostly vegetable proteins. We have a lot of our elderly people who, if they choose not to have dialysis, they're actually changed to a purely vegetarian diet and they feel so much better at that level. Because of the toxins that actually your own body creates at that level, we can tailor a diet to them that makes them feel so much better. I have people who go and eat a big steak meal and feel sick for a day or two afterwards. So that's, I think, some of the important things. Now, the toxins that actually build up, there's about 4,000 of them. The sad thing is we don't know which ones actually make you feel sick. So we're still doing work around that. Many of them are bound to proteins in your body and run around. We also know that actually people who have had their colons out, say they've had a bad bowel cancer and they've had their colons removed, their level of toxins in their body is a lot lower than that. So it is to do with food you eat that, let's call it festering in your bowels and things, and then recirculating through your body. Normally you'd pee it out, but if you haven't, then actually that recirculates in people who have got the high meat protein going through, and that's where the level of high toxins come from. So the simple detoxing is simply looking at what you're eating and getting professional nutritional dietary advice is the first step. Detoxing, well, we can talk about some of the other things that people do, but I would start with what's going into your body rather than actually how do you get it out.
Thank you, Matthew. So from a dietitian's perspective, Patrick, what are the more dangerous or misleading diet trends you've seen recently? And I know you've certainly alluded to the wild west of social media. I think we can all relate to that. But I'd be interested to know if there's a particular trend that you've seen that you've gone, hello.
Yeah, I think it's quite a common theme with lots of these fad diets, and detoxes included, where they start cutting out those whole food groups. So with those 5 food groups we talked about before, when you're cutting out a whole food group, let's think about, say, dairy, for example. If it's like, oh, with this diet, this fad, cut out dairy, you don't need that. That means you most likely won't be getting enough calcium in your diet, and then you're at risk of your bones getting weaker. Similar with, say, vegetables. If some diet's like, God, I cut out vegetables, they're no good, we'll be missing out on a lot of fibre, which is really good for our gut bugs that Matthew talked about before. So I think, and then detoxes, they're often, in many cases, cutting out sort of all the food groups and thinking, oh, you need to allow the body time to cleanse. But as Matthew said really wonderfully, we've got kidneys and we've got these organs that do that job every single day. And there's no need to be cutting out all this food to let your body cleanse. It's doing it as we speak right now. It's been doing it before, and it's going to keep doing it for a long while ahead.
I'm interested to know if restrictive or high protein diets trigger or accelerate kidney damage in some people, Matthew, because certainly I know at the moment that I can think of some people who I know who are taking, certainly dedicated to a high protein diet, maybe not meat, breakfast, lunch and dinner, but certainly that is a restriction. So I'm curious to know how that might accelerate kidney damage that's working so well.
So we start with low protein diet. I'd be really careful about restricting my patients because many of them are diabetic, many have hypertension, heart failure. So if you start restricting salt, a diabetic diet, maybe a celiac diet, and then maybe a kidney diet, they're basically eating a lettuce leaf, and that's about it. So that's why we have had renal dietitians working in our renal unit for years, because actually we don't need doctors making up a diet when we've actually got professionals. So that's what we do, because actually it's usually not just one thing that they actually need to look around as such. And it used to be that we used to really restrict protein years ago before we had some good medicines. Nowadays we only modestly restrict protein, but if you're doing everything else right. So you have to be really careful about too strong a restriction. Then you move to the other end of the scale, and look, there's no upper limit to protein. Someone I saw last week was doing 5 grams per kilo of protein, and he was spending something like $500 a week on protein supplements and things, just really putting it in. Now, if you have kidney disease and you pee protein, all that protein is just going straight into the toilet. So you're essentially peeing $500 a week straight to the toilet, because what happens, the more you go in, if you've got kidney disease, the more comes out and things. So we rarely push high protein diet, and in fact what protein does in your body, it actually causes what's called hyperfiltering. So it actually, high protein goes to these little filter units, they actually increase the pressure in there, and they actually, a bit like a mouse in a little treadmill, it actually makes it work so much harder. And we think that's actually the mechanism in diabetic kidney disease that happens early on. And you can't do that for too long before the kidneys start wearing out. And so what we do see, especially in diabetes, is we start to see that scarring from hyperfiltration. So high protein theoretically can cause problems if you have kidney disease. If your kidney is completely normal, so far there is no evidence that actually it does harm to your kidneys. But all the studies are 6 months, 3 years at most. They're not the lifetime type studies. So I say to a lot of my patients, I'll tell you in 20 or 30 years' time. And that's why some of we're cautious about taking kidney donors under the age of 30, because actually we're looking at lifetime of that hyperfiltering. You take away one kidney, that other kidney has to do the work. That's hyperfiltration. And that's what you're doing with a high protein diet. So over a 50-year span is what we're thinking, and there is no evidence supporting or against it of high protein over that length of time. But if you do have high kidney disease, high protein is not going to do you any benefits. And again, getting the right professional advice is what we do with our patients.
Thank you, Matthew. Let's talk about fish, Patrick, like salmon, and is often seen as a healthy choice. Where does it sit in the picture of a kidney-friendly diet specifically? And please note the pun in this question. And are there any catches to watch for? Ha ha ha.
So I think if people choose to eat fish and they like that, I think it can be a great part in a healthy diet, really fitting in that sort of protein or protein alternatives, meat or meat alternative source to have there. Fish like salmon or many other types of seafood that people enjoy, it has some really good fats that are good for our heart health, so that's a real benefit. At the same time, if you really don't enjoy fish, you can get these great nutrients from other sources too, like nuts and seeds. So yep, I'd say fish does have a place in one's diet if they enjoy that. It can be a nutritious thing, but just like everything else, all in moderation. There's no need to go out and have fish, in all your meals. You're not going to get this increasing benefit. Having it as part of that balanced diet from the 5 food groups, I think that'd be a great option.
As you were speaking, though, I confess I was reflecting on the fact that every Saturday morning I listen to Dr. Norman Swan and Dr. Priya Alexander on the Health Report, and Dr. Norman Swan is a huge advocate for the Mediterranean diet, which I tend to associate with fish more than, say, with beef. I'm not sure if that's factual, but I'm sure you could correct me. Is the Mediterranean diet that he's such a fan of, is it sort of... I believe it espouses fish as a good source of protein.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely does. So I suppose some of the key things with the Mediterranean diet, it's really focused on unprocessed foods really. So whole grains, fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, meats too, like a bit of fish or nuts or seeds or maybe a little bit of meat or chicken in moderation. But it's really, I suppose, number one, lots of those great fruit, veggies, unprocessed grains, olive oil too. Great nutritious thing to be going for in moderation. And I think that's another point I haven't mentioned before about, I think today if you go to the supermarket, there's just this increasing enormity of these processed foods that are available. And I think if you think back to maybe some ingredients that your mother or your grandmother used to cook up with, I think they're, in a nutshell, they're great things to be going for, aiming for those foods that aren't super processed. Because we do know with the research emerging more so and more so that these ultra processed foods are really no good for our health. So sticking to the basics, and the Mediterranean diet really is around that. Lots of these wonderful fruit and veggies that do grow in abundance around the Mediterranean Sea where the land arises. So yeah, that's, I suppose, one approach to health that is decent. And as well, if we think about the Heart Foundation, like I mentioned before, the Australian dietary guidelines, they actually mirror up very similar to the Mediterranean diet. So those sort of key principles sort of shine through in lots of these great resources if you're looking for some more information around that.
I'm sure Dr. Norman Swan would agree with everything you just said. Matthew, if I may, some people self-prescribe herbal teas or over-the-counter supplements to cleanse their kidneys. I confess I've never heard of that as a choice to self-prescribe herbal teas or supplements to cleanse their kidneys. Are there risks to that? I would imagine there might be.
The simple answer is yes, you've got to be careful. So Taiwan used to have the highest rate of kidney disease in the world. And so they actually did, much like the Northwest, they did quite an intensive study into that, and they discovered it was actually due to the Chinese herbs that everybody took, an ingredient called aristocolic acid in the standard Chinese herbs. So what they thought was healthy for them in Taiwan actually was killing their kidneys in the highest rate in the world. Since they've taken that one ingredient out of the Chinese herbs, banned it in the country, the rate of kidney disease has gone right down. So don't assume something that's actually good for you, for a natural thing, is actually good. Some of our brilliant transplant medicines we use come from Easter Island, Rapa Nui, sirolimus. So these are natural things that have actually been produced into medicines. When it comes to actual herbal teas and some of those ingredients, many of them are simple diuretics. I think celery and all that, so they actually make you pee more and they make you feel better. But much like that, they do take things with them, such as potassium. If you pee more, you'll pee more potassium. Dandelion tea is one of the things. I think dandelion tea is always recommended for kidney disease. It's okay early on because it's high potassium in dandelion tea, and that's why they say it's got a diuretic effect, but it's got high potassium as well. High potassium is actually really good for you, good for your heart health, really early on. And we actually recommend potassium intake over sodium intake as your salt. So that's where some of the herbal things are good for you, but early on. As your kidney disease progresses, your kidneys, especially past the filter unit where you get into the tubules, it can't handle that potassium load and it starts to do you harm. So I had to visit one of my patients in intensive care at Calvary. She'd taken 2 tablets of olive leaf extract. She was told by her sister they're good for you. It put her into intensive care because she had kidney disease. So you've got to be really careful as you go on. So as well as dietitians, we have expert pharmacists who work with us. And every single supplement you take, they will interrogate and look and see whether it's good for you or not. Grapefruit juice, for example, grapefruit juice interferes with all of our transplant medications because it interferes with the liver. So all these things which you think are simple and good, just beware. If you've got kidney disease, it's not so simple and in fact can be deadly.
Obviously, I don't want to know any personal details, but for this poor woman in ICU that you described who had taken 2, was it olive
leaf extract? Olive
leaf extract. Did that, how did that manifest in her for her to end up in ICU?
So many of these things work as a diuretic, which makes you pee more, and often people might use them as weight loss things because you actually lose fluid weight. But also it takes potassium with it, and a low potassium is not good for your heart. So it can get heart rhythm problems. In fact, the gentleman I saw last week also had muscle weakness because your muscles need potassium. So in a perfect system, you're actually really well regulated, so you've got to be careful about just doing something because you saw something online, or what many of my patients say, they get sent articles out of New Idea or one of the popular magazines because one of their mates thought it was a good idea for them. So no, if you have kidney disease, we've got a whole team of people who can give you expert advice.
Thank you, Matthew. Excuse me. Shortly, we'll come to a chance to take questions from you, so do consider any questions that you might have either for Patrick or for Matthew. If you could give people, this is to both of you, just 1 or 2 practical things to start doing tomorrow to protect their kidneys, what would your recommendation be? I'll start with you, Patrick.
Well, I've talked about a few things already. So really having food from the whole 5 food groups. No need to be really restrictive and enjoy lots of those wide foods. Another thing as well I think I would add in is really easing off on the salt intake. So just sort of table salt or really salty and processed foods too. Easing off on that is going to put a fair bit less pressure on the kidneys too, to be filtering out that salt. So in addition to food from the 5 food groups, steer clear of the fad diets and the detox diets. Aiming for avoiding some of those processed, ultra-processed foods, and then that will also, if you're avoiding the processed foods, will almost certainly lead to a lower salt intake, which will really help with your kidney health and your health in the long run. Yeah.
And I neglected to check if ice cream was in those 5 family groups, but I'm judging you're going to say no. Dream on, Jade. I'll pass to Matthew. Thank you, Patrick.
Comes under dairy. Doesn't it? So I think of kidneys as your long term, and we talk about health span. So actually think about your next big 0 birthday and how healthy you want to be. And that's sort of the yardstick I do, which might be 10 years away. It's regular physical activity, it's good healthy diet in moderation without excesses. You don't do the kilogram of cashew nuts that some of our patients do every day. You know, so some of those things that put you into trouble. If you come to see me, I'll mistakenly say, what poisons are you on? Because everything you put into your body is a type of poison. So you've got to be really careful about getting that tincture of poison right. Now, some people don't like me when I ask them what poisons they're on, but actually it's the truth, and most of the time we're actually looking at de-prescribing, stopping things, or at least looking at if someone's taking an anti-inflammatory tablet for their arthritis, which does kill the kidneys, we talk about it and actually say, okay, don't take it every day, but actually when you're going out to see the grandchildren or some of those things, that's when you take it. You know, live a life. I don't want you sitting at home protecting your kidney number, which might be up around 60 if you're not seeing your grandchildren. So it's not putting poisons into your body that you don't need. It's doing regular physical activity and good eating, good healthy diet, and thinking long term. Remember, you only lose 1 point of kidney function a year, and if you can get past the age that you want to get past, and I aim for 100 in all of my patients, then that's actually good for most people having that long-term outlook. And I'll send you away and say, look, come back in 5 or 10 years' time. And I've been in Hobart long enough that people are now doing that, and it's brilliant when you see that they've actually taken your advice and actually have done it all themselves. They don't need me any longer.
Isn't it wonderful when your doctor says, go away, see me in 5 years' time? It's fantastic. I might go back to you, Matthew, if I may, because keen to ask how closely is kidney disease and heart disease or diabetes linked? Do you often see these conditions in combination?
So we certainly do. If your kidney function drops below 30%, we know most people will often die rather than reach the need for dialysis. And the reason they die is cardiovascular disease. So heart disease, cardiovascular disease is the biggest killer of our patients. The second biggest killer is cancer, because kidney disease is an inflammatory state, and people with kidney disease often have twice as much cancer. And because their kidney function is low, they can't get the same drugs as people with good kidneys. So their outcomes, their survival from cancer isn't as good. So kidney disease, buggers up quite a lot of things as you get older, and that's why you want to maintain good kidney function, or detect it early on and maintain that kidney function as early as possible.
Thank you, Matthew. So I'd be interested to ask, how do you work together as a nephrologist and dietitian to support patients, and what makes that collaboration work? This is a chance to maybe have a really sort of behind the scenes look. Would you care to start, Patrick?
Yeah, so I think it's absolutely critical working closely with the nephrology team, the kidney doctors, and the rest of that healthcare team. So I think Matthew mentioned towards the start there, we have multidisciplinary meetings. That's just a fancy term for all these people coming together to work out what's best for the patients we're seeing, and that's a really golden opportunity to share our expert advice and opinion on how we can help out these people. So that's, I think, one of the most common interplay I have with the wider healthcare team where I'm working. But there's always opportunities for calling up over the phone or sending a message to, and really collaborating in many different ways, I suppose, as many other people would. So Yeah, that's what I suppose firstly comes to mind for me. What about yourself, Matthew?
Yes, I think, gone are the days where the doctor knows everything. Healthcare is, health knowledge is too broad. So healthcare is a team sport these days, especially in the Royal Hobart Hospital, that actually we learn off each other. And that's where, if I have a dietitian seeing my patient, then I'm not going to talk to you about diet. I've got someone who's an expert on that. And it's actually a safe space where we can challenge each other, that some of our dietitians on our team do actually challenge me about, why aren't you doing something about this potassium, Matthew, or this phosphate, or some of those things. So actually it is a team sport, and you learn off each other, and actually you also depend on each other where you're checking each other's results and also learning about the patient. Because actually some people will try to be good for the doctor, but they'll then go and tell the dietitian all these other things that they were too scared to tell the doctor. So, but it actually gets back to me, I can learn about things. So yeah, it works in both ways, and actually I think we'll work very well together as a team, so long as we trust each other, and nobody needs, Patrick's not going to talk to me about how to manage this transplant, and I'm not going to tell him about what diet I want him to put my patient on, because actually we expect each other to have that expert knowledge.
Thank you, Matthew. At the beginning of the forum this hour, you mentioned that it was the opportunity, not only you had the good sense to marry a Tasmanian, but you also were lucky to be a recipient of a Royal Hobart Hospital Research Foundation grant, I presume. Given that you've also been involved in some other major research projects, we'd love to know if you would be so kind as to share one that's had a sort of a really profound impact, as I'm sure they all have.
Thank you. So yes, come February, I have been in Tasmania for 20 years, and I did a PhD in transplant immunology at Monash Medical Centre, and I was a transplant physician there prior to going to Darwin, where I was Director of Renal Services for the Northern Territory, and flew on very small aircraft out to Aboriginal communities and looked after people with kidney disease. So then my wife was sick of travelling around the country while I was training, so actually we came down to Tassie in February 2006. And the first grant I got was from the Research Foundation, looking, again, some of that molecular stuff of which I'd done before. But fast forward, some of the work we're really now doing all these years later and really proud of, you might have seen the latest, just before Christmas, one of my young researchers, Dr. Laura, she was looking at motherhood and kidney disease. So some of her work was actually looking at, what if you've got mild kidney disease, does that affect the mother during pregnancy? Does that affect the baby? So she's actually publishing that work. She's actually in Melbourne finishing off her specialist training, and she's now actually, because of that work, becoming an obstetric physician. So she's working at the Royal Women's next year, looking after mothers of high-risk babies, and she's actually planning to come back to Tasmania in 2027 as a specialist physician looking after mothers with illnesses, and she'll be putting in a Research Foundation grant in about 3 years' time to continue her work. So that's one of the projects. The other project we're really proud of at the moment is what's called the Lowenfeld-Muller translational grant. That's looking at older Tasmanians at the other end of the spectrum who actually have a whole lot of health problems going on, that will a dialysis machine actually help them, and in what way? So we're actually looking at days alive out of hospital without the machine, and just showing that if you're over 85, that a dialysis machine does not help you have any more free time. In fact, you actually get less free time and you don't live any longer. So with that translational grant from the Research Foundation, we've developed videos that are going onto a website. We've got patient stories, we've got some leaflets, because everybody only hears about people who are on the kidney machine 5 hours, 3 days a week for the rest of their life. You never hear about people who are in the garden down here at Sandy Bay who decided, I don't want to have dialysis, thank you, but I'm still going to live 3 or 4 years and not waste my time sitting on a dialysis machine up at Newtown. So that work's coming to conclusion, and that'll be the Australia first. And in fact, it probably will be the only study in the world which will have patient stories about people who chose not to have dialysis and what it's like. And some fascinating stories, including one gentleman who did say he's gone vegetarian and his kidney function's getting better. Well, it's actually not, he just feels so much better. so that'll go public at the end of the year. Once we've had it, we've got a consumer group who are actually leading that, and I say it goes live when they say it can go live. You know, we're underpinning it with all the knowledge, but actually it's their work, and they're the ones who are really proud of it. And that's a statewide consumer group where people in the north and the south come together. So yeah, a couple of really important ones which are helping Tasmanians, and hopefully looking forward, it's also contributed to training Tasmanians for the next generation of doctors, so I can retire one day.
Yes, and pull back on those 10 to 11 hour days, that's for sure. Just in the last sort of 10 minutes or so until 7 p.m, it's about 10 to 7 now, this is an opportunity to fire away with any questions that you may have for either for Patrick or for Matthew, and Erica's going to kindly, from the foundation, circulate the microphone. Thanks, Erica.
Thank you. Is there a blood test that we should be having to find out what our current kidney function is?
Do you want me to wait for the microphone?
Oh yes, sorry, I beg your pardon.
Yes, so the first place to start is go and see your GP. There are risk factors for having kidney disease, which is high blood pressure, if you've got a family history, if you're age over 60, if you're diabetic, if you're an Aboriginal Australian, Indigenous Australian, a whole lot of risk factors for it. Go and ask your GP, but essentially anybody over the age of 60 can have a blood test and a urine test. So it's a blood test for creatinine. That the lab will then report your kidney function, which is called EGFR. So that comes on the results automatically. Normal is greater than 90. As the lower it goes, the worse it is. And like I said, we put people on dialysis machines less than 10%. So do a urine test as well, because that will also show you a lot of protein in your urine is bad. It means your kidney function will go down a lot quicker than 1 point a year. So a urine test, a blood test, and checking your blood pressure, because that's an early sign of kidney disease. So start with your GP. Most of the time your GP can manage things, because I gave a talk to them last week. They'll know exactly what to do.
You're good to go. Thank you. There was a question here from this gentleman.
What are the typical symptoms of kidney disease?
So yesterday I saw a gentleman, Patrick said before about nausea and vomiting, so he has morning sickness.
Oh.
And I always laughed and said, "Oh, are you pregnant?" You know, so it's not that, but it's just the, as your kidneys fail, the acid builds up in your body, especially if you're having a lot of meat and things, that's sort of acid generating. So you actually get that acidy taste, that sort of heartburn, and you feel really seedy in the morning. So you often skip breakfast. You know, it's that morning sickness, you're vomiting, tiredness. Now, I think 80% of the population has got tiredness, so it's not a specific thing, but you feel like you're slowing down, and then right towards the end, when your kidney function's down below 10%, you feel like you've got the flu. You just can't get out of bed, you're tired, you don't feel hungry, it's just really seedy. And so when I see some people like that, they've basically have gone to see their GP because of that. The GP's done that urine and blood test, and that's when the alarm bells start to ring. In some of the older gentlemen we have who have prostate problems, they think they've just got a bit of a urine problem, passing urine, but actually what's happened is their plumbing has blocked off, and so they start to feel more than just bladder problems. They start to feel those kidney symptoms because it's blocked off their plumbing and their kidney function is really plummeted. The good news, those gentlemen, a urinary catheter will fix their kidneys to start off with, and then we can fix their prostate. So not all kidney disease is one way. There are instances where we can fix your kidneys, or at least improve them enough. So yeah, early blood test, early urine test, and see your GP.
Thank you, Matthew. Opportunity for another question? Yeah, by all means. Thanks, Erica.
I won't need the mic.
Oh no, you've got a great voice. Oh my goodness.
On dietary, I know that you were saying before that there were things like some of the acids, like grapefruit and things like that, aren't great for you. But are there other, like supermarket items like avocados or spinach or things that we shouldn't really be having in our diet that, you know, a lot of people like and have all the time?
Yeah, so I suppose, you know, I don't know your specific situation. So
I don't know.
Yeah, but in general health terms, things like spinach and avocado, great things to be going for. So it's coming back to those sort of 5, you know, food groups, having lots of wide variety of fruit, veggies, whole grains, protein, you know, meat or meat alternatives, and some dairy or dairy alternatives. I think that point about the grapefruit, that's specifically if people are on dialysis and getting certain medications, if they had, say, a transplant, where that can be a particularly tricky thing to that you need to be mindful of. So I think that's the time where talking to the health professionals that you're connected with about, are there any concerns about things like the grapefruit there, best to go for. But in general health terms, avocado, great source of good fat.
Vegetable, just go for it.
Yeah, you basically can't go wrong with fresh fruit and veggies. They're wonderful, and luckily in Tassie we've got a real abundance of amazing fresh produce here. So yeah, definitely tuck in. It's good stuff for you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Next door. Thanks, Erica.
About 6 years ago, I had a cancer in the left kidney, and I made the choice to remove the kidney as it was contained. The cancer was contained. Now, after listening to this, I'm not sure, but I have the one kidney. I had a fright recently. I went to get my left knee operated on, and the anaesthetist said that my kidney, the way also having a bit of a heart problem, that I wouldn't survive with the fluid that was going to be put through the kidney, and that I would certainly lose a percentage of my body function. So where am I going with this? So that made me concerned, got me a fright actually, because I've been living quite a normal life and eating just about everything. I'm in flux at the moment because I'm seeing the GP, and we're organising trying to get a dietitian and having tests, because I know that before I went to the anaesthetist, my blood count was 29. So I think it's a bit below that now, possibly, because they were very serious about what they were saying to me. So I came here with interest, and as I said, we're working now to find out exactly where I am, how long I live, and I have a terrible fright of being on a dialysis. I don't think you've got a life, you might as well, do other things. I don't know, terrible thing to say. But I did hear that you can have, that there are dialysis machines where you can have at home overnight. Is that true?
Yes, it is. So let's use your case as an example, not specifically for you, but kidney function at 29, we see a lot of people where people say don't do things. So
I forgot to say I'm 91.
Oh, good for you.
Your age 91?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So I'm in the bad area.
Absolutely. So low kidney function makes doctors stop and think. So it's really important. And so again, if I saw you and let's say you're 60, the difference between do you do a knee operation or sit in a chair or have pain for the rest of your life, that's the sort of discussion we have. That I would say the anaesthetist, yes, good anaesthetic care, you should only lose 1 or 2 points of function at all. It might minor drop, but it should come up. But to make you sit in a chair or not get out and about and exercise for the rest of your life at age 60 is not the right thing to do. So it's about, okay, shared decision making, what's important for you, and like I said, if you want to get out with your grandchildren, that's good. At age 91, you do the maths, if you sit there and lose 1 point a year, you'll get the letter from the king, which is good. It's good. The problem is, do you if people want to do things to you, absolutely, you look them in the eye and say, is it going to do me harm? Because that's where it's about. If we leave you alone, that's often the best way to be, because actually the benefits are there, are not there as much as they are in younger people. For example, all health screening stops at age 75. You no longer get the bowel cancer kit. You no longer follow the cholesterol guidelines at age 75. There is no guidelines for age 91. So, except do no harm. Leave you alone unless it's something that really has to happen. So I think most time, talk to your doctor about what's going to work for you, and actually that's where, diet becomes really important and looking after your health.
Yeah, I can speak briefly.
Yeah, by all means, Patrick.
I think just very briefly, I think you're doing exactly the right things. You're reaching out to your GP, seeking their advice, and that they mentioned see the dietitian, then that sounds like it might be a good option. So well done, I think, for taking that step and looking into those options together with your local doctor, with your GP.
I think you're a very sprightly looking 91-year-old, so Well done. Just one last call for any final question. Thank you. Just down the back. Thanks, Erica.
Can you reverse or improve mild decline, or once it's gone, it's gone?
It depends. So take the older gentlemen who have a plumbing problem due to the prostate, that can get better. But the longer it sits there, the more the kidney scars up. If you've had something that actually has been coming on for a long time, that causes scarring. So inflammation leads to scarring. So the earlier you detect it, the better off you are. Can we get you better? Not yet. But the kidney does contain stem cells that actually regenerate. So the younger you are, if you have what we call acute kidney injury, so an injury to the kidney, and you get a stun in function, the actual kidney does regenerate and can improve their function in that acute setting. The older you are, you don't bounce as well for the kidneys, let alone anything else. So yeah, early detection is really important. And when I say not poisoning, the most common poison is the anti-inflammatories, the Brufen, the Voltaren, the Indocid, all those ones which people take for arthritis, which are really important for keeping you moving, but they harm the kidneys over a longer period of time. So at the moment, the kidneys only get better if it's a short-term problem. Longer term, what we're working on are those stem cells in the kidney and how do we harness them to regenerate. And then the next step is actually kidney transplants instead of something coming from someone else, taking your blood and your stem cells and growing your own kidney and putting it back into you. So that stuff is not quite there yet. Melissa Little in Melbourne can do rat kidneys and things, but it's not quite there in humans. We're up to pigs in humans for replacing kidneys.
Wow. Gosh, watch this space. Just to wrap up this evening, I'm going to ask you both if there was one kind of critical message you would love everyone to leave tonight with as a health message to inspire looking after and loving your kidney and your kidney health, what would it be? Thanks, Patrick. You're going to say 5 food groups, aren't you?
Yeah, but I think, in addition to that, I think enjoying all food in moderation. We talked briefly about ice cream before. I think having ice cream every now and again as part of a healthy, balanced diet is fine. And focusing on those key things we've talked about, and I've talked about in particular throughout the night, are really going to set you up for good health in the long run.
She said you can have ice cream.
Absolutely.
Chocolate and ice cream.
Yeah, with red wine.
And the important question is which Tasmanian company ice cream you're going to recommend, because that's the important thing. So look, it's all things in moderation and think long term. That actually there is no quick fix, there is no fad that's going to really improve things. All of the diet evidence is all short term and it has benefit in the short term, not really the long term. So think long term, think health span, keeping your health going for as long as possible. We all wish to be 91 and out on a Tuesday evening. Those are things that are really important. Patrick said eat foods that your grandmother would eat. I follow that because my grandmother loved making desserts and things and all that. So that's what I do. And really, get out there and exercise. And I had to smile last week when one of my patients, who I've been talking to her for years about physical activity, get a dog, do something like that. No, she went and saw the dietitian, and the dietitian pounded on the desk and said, if you don't get out and exercise, then you're not worth coming back and seeing me to talk about diet. And that actually worked. She suddenly lost all these kilos simply by listening to the dietitian. So yeah, there's no miracle fix, but actually get out there and try something.
There's no miracle fix, but hopefully you will take away from this evening just some eminently sensible, practical advice from 2 very learned guests. Would you join with me in please thanking Professor Matthew Jose and Patrick Hinton, Senior Dietitian with the Royal Hobart Hospital. A huge thanks to Robbie down the back. Oh, and you might want to go and visit him. He doesn't have little tubs of ice cream, but I believe he may have a little sample for you to take home. You are our event sponsor and foundation partner with you, and thank you, Robbie, so much for being here this evening. Make sure you say hi before you leave. And the Royal Hobart Research Foundation has funded over $12 million in research since 1997, benefiting the health of everyone, all Tasmanians here in our community. So as Steph mentioned at the start of this evening, if you would like to support local medical research, then please scan the QR code that's, I believe, is directly behind me on the screen. You're very welcome to make a donation if you have that capacity. But we thank you very much for joining us.